The metal you weld on is very important. You need to know what kind of metal it is, like steel or iron or aluminum, whether it's hot rolled, cold rolled, or neither. You also need to know the thickness of the metal. Now to cut the steel. There are many different ways to cut steel. The best for this case is probably the horizontal bandsaw. However, in our shop this is broken right now. So our options are limited to the vertical bandsaw, a hacksaw, the plasma cutter, and the chop saw. And, mainly because I'm a lazy bastard, now that the metal is cut, we should clean it. Cleaning is basically just taking the top layer of steel off as it's dirty. Cleaning it, so long as it's not rusty or hella dirty, isn't always necessary for MIG welding. However, TIG and stick do need the steel to be clean. Cleaning the steel helps the arc to strike, which is how you weld. You only really need to clean off the spot you'll be welding. A lot of people like to use an angle grinder for this, but that's loud and the steel gets hot. And I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to use a wire wheel. The steel doesn't get as clean, but it does the job. Before anything, you need to put PPE on to prevent potentially life-threatening / changing injuries. First of all, tuck all loose clothing away. Make sure any hoodie straps or things to that effect are also tucked away. Remove all jewelry, tie back long hair. Make sure you have steel-toe boots on and safety glasses. That's just the normal shop PPE. For welding, all previous things do apply. However, you need a welding coat, welding gloves, and to not go blind, a welding visor. Me personally, I like mine auto darkening. The way the MIG welder works is when the button on the handle is pushed, it will start feeding the wire. When this happens, the arc can be struck and the gas comes out of the nozzle. The gas is to insulate the weld so it doesn't get all fucked up. When the wire makes contact with the metal, the arc will strike so long as the ground is attached. Alright, time for the setup. Now, first things first, you need to know the diameter or the gauge of the steel. Lift up the side of the welder, make sure it's off, if not it might accidentally strike an arc and that would not be good. The easiest way to tell what gauge steel you have is to put it next to these images on the welder and compare it. The gas mixture is also important to know. As you can see, all other rows are taped off, as this is the closest gas mixture we have in the shop. The most common gas mixture is 75% argon and 25% CO2. Now, if you look below the gauges, you'll see the recommended wire speed and volts for this steel and gas combination. Set the wire feed and volts to the recommended. To keep it simple, set all these dials to 0 and set it to 2-step. Turn the gas on by turning this valve. We don't need to adjust the flow rate as it's already set up on this machine, so set it around here on your machine. Make sure you have attached the ground to the welding surface or the workpiece, or else it's not going to be able to strike an arc. Alright, before I show you me actually welding, I'm going to explain what I'm doing when I'm welding. So the way I like to lay a bead, and there's many different ways to lay a bead. The way I like to lay a bead is this modified circle technique. Basically, I start like that, and I kind of go like that. That's kind of how I do it. However, there's there's the usual circle technique, which is more or less like this. There's this technique. There's many techniques. I'm not going to explain all of them, because if I did, I would be here all day. Now, while welding, you might have noticed, I had to go slowly. You have to go slowly, most of the time at least, when you're welding. If you don't, then your weld's going to get all messed up and it's not going to be as good. If you go too fast, it's going to be noticeable. There is a thing of going too slow, but it's a lot harder to go slower than it is faster. When you're welding, you need to do what's called a tack weld before any other weld. Basically, this is like a short weld between your two workpieces. We'll say these are the workpieces. So you would just really quickly, just on both sides. Pretend they're closer together, obviously. Now what this does is it prevents the metal from separating during the weld. If you don't do this, when you're welding, your metal will end up looking something like this, where you're trying to lay a bead and then it just separates like that. You don't want that.
I'm filming it for him.
It's a good idea to clean out your nozzle. If you don't clean out your nozzle and it's very dirty, the gas might not come out right, or the wire might get stuck inside, which can seriously mess up your weld. I already cleaned out the nozzle on this machine, and I'm too lazy to go to another one, so I'm just going to demonstrate what it is like to clean out a nozzle. First step, unscrew the nozzle, just how you would unscrew anything. Get some needle head pliers. These are the pretty thin pliers at the very front. This is hard to film with one hand holding the phone, by the way. I don't know if you could tell. You basically just want to try to grab any slag that might be inside of the nozzle. You can go around a few times if you're not happy, and whenever you're done, make sure you just tap the nozzle on the table or just anywhere to get any extra slag out. To put it back on, you just do the same thing that you did before, and hopefully if you did everything right, your nozzle is clean now and it won't mess up your welds. Some things in your life may break, and while you can just buy a new one, it's usually easier or cheaper to weld it back on if it's metal. Some of these things include car parts breaking off, some furniture tools, yard equipment, metal fences, and other things that I can't think of at the moment.